There are a number of cases regarding Defense of Marriage Act that simply said states could make that decision and the federal government couldn't preempt the states.
The interesting point is proponents of same-sex marriage are arguing two mutually exclusive things. On the attempt to overturn the Defense of Marriage Act, they're arguing that states like Massachusetts that have passed same-sex marriage, that somehow that preempts Congress from defining marriage as the union of a man and a woman, and that because the states define marriage as the union of a man and a woman, the federal government has to recognize that. So they're essentially making a sort of a strange states' rights argument, but they're arguing the federal government and our duly elected representatives, Congress, doesn't have a right to define marriage. On the other hand, they're arguing in the Perry case, the Proposition 8 case, that not only does the federal government have a right to define marriage, there's an obligation in the U.S. Constitution to recognize, to redefine marriage. On one hand, they're arguing the U.S. Constitution demands same-sex marriage. It's the federal government that has to redefine marriage throughout the country and overturn all of these laws that have been passed overwhelmingly in these 30 states through constitutional amendments and in 10 other states through statute. And in the DOMA case, it's arguing, oh, no, this is a states issue. So it's trying to argue two different things, and I think that's why taking all of the cases at once will sort of expose a bit of the sort of hypocrisy going on in these two very different and mutually exclusive arguments they're making. The Obamacare decision that you referenced and Roberts' decision to accept that actually, in some ways, bodes well for DOMA because Congress has the right to impose this quote-unquote tax, basically essentially force Americans each to have health care. Even though there's no history or tradition of this, Roberts argues, well, the court has to give deference to Congress. Well, if the court has to give deference to Congress for this completely new idea, forcing each American to have health care, then what about the traditional and historic understanding of marriage? Of course the court has to give deference to Congress that it has the right to define marriage as it's always been defined under federal law. But also, I don't think that Justice Kennedy wants to launch a new cultural war here. I think that if you look at the arguments before passage of Roe versus Wade, many argued that, look, if the court acts here and basically imposes its will, the conversation will end. That isn't what happened. It short-circuited the democratic process. The court stepped in, and it launched a war that goes to this day. That is a key point in all of this, that the court will be short-circuiting the democratic process. It will be imposing its will, and it will essentially be invalidating 50 millions and millions of votes that have happened in state after state after state. I don't think it's going to do that.